On that autumn afternoon, the sun tinged the sky with shades of orange as a cool breeze waved the flags of the military academy. It was a day of celebration and expectation for Amara. Since she was a child, her destiny had been mapped out. She would be an elite soldier, shaped by genetics to be the best. The graduation ceremony was the culmination of years of rigorous training and relentless dedication. Amara, with her dark hair pulled back into a neat bun and her ceremonial uniform perfectly fitted, marched proudly as she received the insignia of honor from the hands of the academy commander. Her heart was pounding with excitement and a little anxiety for what was to come next. Alongside her colleagues, she stood out not only for exceptional military skill, but also for a keen intuition and a sense of justice that often brought her into conflict with the strict guidelines of the regime. That was a world where genetics dictated an individual's worth. After the ceremony, while celebrating with her family and colleagues, Amara was approached by a high-ranking official. His grave expression and piercing eyes indicated that this was not a casual congratulatory conversation. "Soldier Amara," the officer began, his voice low and controlled. "You have been selected for a special mission." Amara arched her eyebrows, trying to hide her surprise. Special missions were not routine for recent graduates, and she knew that this would not be an ordinary task. "What is so special about this mission, sir?" she asked, keeping her posture disciplined. The officer hesitated for a moment before answering, his eyes studying hers as if trying to read her thoughts. "You will find out everything when you reach the destination. It's a matter of national security." That same week, Amara quickly prepared for her first mission. Anxiety mixed with excitement as she checked her equipment and reviewed the details of the operation. His platoon mates, male and female soldiers who shared the pride and burden of belonging to the genetic elite, offered words of encouragement. "You're going to rock, Amara," said Alexei, a close friend who had exceptional skill with long-range weapons. "Remember to rely on training. You're ready for it." Amara nodded, grateful for the support, but knowing that the mission ahead would not be just another military exercise. It was something different, something that could change everything she thought she knew about the world outside the academy's secure walls. Other soldiers approached, each offering a gesture of solidarity. They were all young people, some fresh out of academia like her, others veterans who had already seen more of the world than they would like. But they all shared a sense of purpose, a conviction that they were on the right side of history. "The mission may be challenging, but we are here for you, Amara," said Maya, a born leader with an exceptional skill for field strategy. "Trust the team and trust yourself." Amara nodded again, absorbing every word of encouragement as she mentally prepared for what was to come. She knew she wasn't alone. She had a loyal team by her side, and that was a comfort amid the uncertainty hanging over the mission. As the moment of departure approached, Amara mentally reviewed the details of the mission. The official had not revealed much, only that it was crucial to national security, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more at stake than simply carrying out an order. The sun began to set on the horizon as the team gathered for the last revision of the plan. Amara took a deep breath, feeling the electrical energy in the air as they prepared to leave. She knew that by dawn they would be entering uncharted territory. The night before the mission, the sky was covered in clouds that obscured the stars, contributing to the tense atmosphere that hung over the camp. Amara tried to rest, but her thoughts were agitated, and she was haunted by fragmented nightmares that depicted ominous shadows and whispering voices. With a racing heart, Amara finally got out of bed. The base was silent, illuminated only by the dim light of the security lamps. She felt the need to walk, to push away the disturbing thoughts that still echoed in her mind. Gliding silently between the tents, Amara found herself following a path that led her beyond the confines of the military base. The cool night air calmed her nerves as she walked, trying to aim beyond the walls that symbolized the security and restraint that defined her life. It was then that she spotted Maya, sitting on a nearby rock, watching the horizon. Maya's figure stood out in the darkness, her posture alert but relaxed at the same time. Amara hesitated for a moment before approaching. "Couldn't sleep too?" Amara asked, trying not to look as upset as she felt. Maya turned to face her, her eyes catching the dim light. "Sometimes the calm of the night brings more clarity than the noise of the day." Amara nodded, sitting down next to Maya. She looked at the distant horizon, where the hills merged with the darkness. I'm nervous about the mission, and with what may be waiting outside. Maya tilted her head, her gaze steady. It's natural to be afraid of the unknown, but it's also where we find opportunities to challenge ourselves. Amara pondered Maya's words, realizing that there was more depth in her colleague than she had previously realized. Do you think there is something more to the mission than we were told? Maya did not immediately respond, as if pondering her own words. Sometimes what is not said is as important as what is. There are layers to this operation, I'm sure of it. Maya's confirmation echoed in Amara's thoughts, awakening a sense of urgency mixed with determination. She knew she couldn't ignore the doubts that popped into her mind, not when they were so close to something that could change everything. The silence between them stretched for a moment, each lost in her own thoughts. Finally, Amara broke the silence. Whatever it is, we're in this together, aren't we? Maya smiled slightly, a gleam of confidence in her eyes. Always, Amara. Together to the end. With a renewed sense of determination and solidarity, Amara and Maya stood there, watching the horizon in silence as the weight of responsibility and the promise of discovery melted into the darkness of the night. Before becoming an elite soldier, Amara lived a childhood marked by a painful duality. While she was the embodiment of perfection, her older sister Alara faced health challenges that prevented her from living a normal life. Alara was older than Amara by 5 years, but the difference between them seemed greater due to circumstances. From an early age, Amara admired Alara's courage and determination despite the limitations imposed by her medical condition. While Amara played and had fun with other children, Alara spent most of her time at home, taking care of her fragile health. Amara's childhood memories were full of playful moments interrupted by frequent visits to the hospital, where Alara received treatments that, to Amara, were a mystery of adults whispering concerns. Alara's fragility was a stark contrast to the resilience Amara was taught to cultivate. In the rare moments when Alara felt well enough to participate in activities with Amara, they created a world of their own, far from society's expectations and demands. Amara learned from Alara to appreciate the small joys in life, the moments of peace and the beauty found in simplicity. Sister, what's up with you? Are you sick? Amara asked one afternoon, worried about her sister who was in bed. It's nothing, Amara. I'm just not feeling very well today. Amara continued to watch her older sister, Alara, as she read a book in the small back garden of the house. The afternoon sun painted a tranquil picture around them, contrasting with the constant bustle inside Amara. Alara, with her brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, seemed immersed in her own world of words and stories. What are you reading, Alara? Amara asked, approaching with childish curiosity. Alara lifted her eyes from the book and smiled gently at her younger sister. It's a book about adventures in distant lands, a world totally different from ours. Amara sat next to Alara, looking at the pages full of small print that formed stories of heroes and challenges. Would you like to live such an adventure, Alara? Alara closed the book carefully and looked up at the blue sky above them. Each of us has our own journey, Amara. Mine is different from yours, but no less significant. Amara frowned, feeling a hint of sadness mixed with curiosity. But you can't do the same things as me, like be a soldier or run fast like the others. Alara placed a gentle hand on Amara's shoulder. That's true, but there are many ways to be strong, to be brave. You have a special gift, and that's wonderful. My journey may be different, but it's still full of its own adventures. Alara's words echoed in Amara's mind as she considered her sister's perspective. Aren't you afraid of being left behind, of not being able to do everything that others do? Alara smiled warmly at Amara. Life is not a race to the top, Amara. It's about discovering what makes us truly happy and complete. I found my peace in the pages of books and in the quiet beauty of everyday life. And you will find yours in the strength that already exists within you. Amara looked at her sister with renewed admiration. Alara wasn't just his older sister. She was his silent guide through the uncertainties and expectations imposed by society. One sunny afternoon in the back garden of the house, Amara and Alara were playing hide and seek. Amara, always agile and determined, decided to hide high in an old oak tree in the corner of the garden. Alara, with a playful smile, began to carefully climb the thin branches to reach her younger sister. "You'll never find me up here," Amara shouted, trying to hold back her laughter as she watched Alara struggle to climb up. Alara, with her unwavering determination, continued to climb, her eyes fixed on Amara. But just as she was about to reach the branch where Amara was hiding, one of the fragile branches gave way under her weight. Alara lost her balance and fell heavily to the ground, a cry of pain escaping her lips. The sound of the impact echoed through the garden as Amara stared in horror at her fallen sister. She climbed down from the oak tree as fast as she could and ran to help Alara, whose face was writhing in pain. Before they could recover from their fright, Amara's parents rushed into the garden. Her mother, her eyes wide with shock, was the first to react. "My God, Alara, what happened?" she exclaimed, falling to her knees beside her fallen daughter. Amara's father, his face a mixture of concern and pent-up anger, rushed to help as well. He looked at Amara with a hard expression. "Amara, how could you be so reckless?" he said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Amara swallowed hard, struggling to find words to explain herself. She never intended to hurt Alara, but now all she could see was the pain she had caused. Alara, even with tears in her eyes, tried to comfort Amara. "It was just an accident, Dad." But his words were not enough to calm the storm of emotions that swept over the garden at that moment. Amara felt small and guilty, her own adrenaline from the prank giving way to deep regret. The tense silence that followed was broken only by Alara's muffled sobs and Amara's confused whispers of apology, as her parents tried to comprehend what had happened and how to deal with the consequences. That night, after the excitement of the incident in the garden had subsided, Amara approached Alara's room with a heart heavy with guilt. She knocked softly on the door and waited, nervous, until her sister finally invited her in. Alara was lying on the bed, an open book next to her, but her face still showed the traces of the physical and emotional pain she had experienced earlier. She looked at Amara with kindness mixed with a slight trace of sadness. "I'm sorry, Alara," Amara began, her voice a whisper laden with remorse. "I never wanted this to happen. I was just trying to joke." Alara smiled softly, reaching for Amara's hand and squeezing it affectionately. "I know, Amara. I know it was an accident. Don't blame yourself so much." Amara sat on the edge of the bed, her words stuck in her throat as she struggled to find a way to express everything she was feeling. Finally, she found the courage to ask what had bothered her since they were children. "Why are we so different, Alara? Why can I do so many things that you can't?" Amara asked, her voice choked. Alara looked at Amara tenderly, as if looking for the right words to explain something that she herself did not yet fully understand. "We are different, Amara, because we are unique. No two people are the same in the world, no matter what others may think." Before Alara could continue, the bedroom door opened abruptly, and her parents entered with serious and worried expressions. Amara's mother looked exhausted, while her father kept his jaw clenched, still clearly shaken by what had happened. "Is everything okay here?" Amara's mother asked, her voice heavy with concern. Alara cast a quick glance at Amara before responding calmly. "Yes, Mother, we're fine." Amara came to apologize, but it was not her fault. Amara's father looked directly at her, his eyes heavy with expectation and disappointment. "You need to be more careful, Amara. We can't risk something worse happening." Amara lowered her eyes, feeling the rebuke weigh on her shoulders. She wanted to explain that she was just trying to have fun with Alara, but the words seemed futile in the face of her parents' evident concern. Amara's mother sighed, looking alternately between her two daughters. "You two need to rest now. Tomorrow is a new day." With one last look of concern, Amara's parents left the room, closing the door gently behind them. Alara looked at Amara with a comforting look, understanding the weight of responsibility that now weighed on her younger sister. "It's okay, Amara," Alara said softly, placing a hand on her sister's. "Let's get through this together, like we always do." Amara nodded, feeling a mixture of gratitude and determination. Years have passed quickly since the incident in the garden. Amara grew up, turning into a determined and ambitious young woman. Alara, despite her own personal struggles, has always been a constant support for her younger sister. They shared many moments together, some filled with laughter and others with tears, but always united by the indestructible bond they shared. On a sunny afternoon, Amara found Alara in the small back garden of the house, where many of their meaningful conversations had taken place over the years. "I have news, Alara," Amara said, barely able to contain her excitement. "I was accepted into the military academy. I will start my training in a few weeks." Alara looked at Amara with a warm smile, although her eyes showed a mixture of pride and concern. "This is wonderful, Amara. I'm so happy for you." Amara, noticing Alara's hesitation, frowned slightly. "What is it, Alara? Aren't you happy for me?" Alara shook her head quickly. "No, that's not it, Amara. I'm so proud of you. It's just that." "It's just that what?" Amara interrupted her, eager to understand her sister's concern. Alara sighed softly, her words carefully chosen. "I just want you to remember who you are, Amara. Don't let them change that." Amara frowned, confused. "Who am I? What do you mean, Alara?" Alara looked at her younger sister tenderly. "You are strong, Amara, more than anyone I know. But don't let the gym or anything else make you forget their kindness, their empathy. Don't let them shape you in a way that isn't authentic to you." Amara was silent for a moment, absorbing Alara's words. She always admired Alara's depth, her ability to see beyond appearances. But this conversation intrigued her, awakening a new layer of reflection on what really mattered to her. "I promise, Alara," Amara said finally, her voice firm, "I will never forget who I am. And you'll be with me every step of the way, won't you?" Alara smiled softly, a mixture of gratitude and love in her eyes. "I will always be by your side, Amara. Always." The awakening the day after the mission was like a distant echo of the relative calm of the military academy. Amara and her companions were gathered before dawn, their faces illuminated only by the dim light of the lanterns that guided them to the outskirts of the city. The neighborhood they were sent to was a maze of narrow alleys and squalid houses. Tensions escalated as they approached the entrance to the neighborhood. Amara could feel the palpable nervousness in her colleagues, as well as the firmness in the footsteps of the commanders leading the operation. Arriving at the designated point, Amara looked around, absorbing the tension-laden atmosphere. The crowd gathered ahead was diverse. Men and women of all ages, some carrying placards and shouting slogans, others simply watching with wary, silent glances. Mission leaders quickly drew up a plan, dividing the soldiers into teams to cover different areas of the neighborhood. Amara was assigned to a group tasked with containing a demonstration that was beginning to escalate on Main Street. Her heart beat faster as she prepared to face her first true test as a soldier. As they walked down the street, the tension in the air became palpable. Amara watched the hostile stares she received from some residents and felt the responsibility weigh on her shoulders. She tried to remember the teachings of the academy, the discipline and training that prepared her for this moment. When they reached the critical point of the demonstration, commands to disperse the crowd were given. Amara felt the adrenaline rush through her veins as she positioned herself along with her companions, ready to act on orders. The riot began quickly. Stones flew through the air. Slogans turned into angry shouts. Amara and her colleagues formed a solid line, meeting the resistance with firmness and determination. She felt the tension in the air, the weight of responsibility to maintain order while protecting both civilians and herself. Amid the chaos, Amara found herself making quick and decisive choices. She moved with precision, following orders from superiors while remaining calm under pressure. Every move was a test of her skill and courage, and she strove to honor the trust she had been given as a soldier. The situation on the mission quickly escalated beyond expected control. What began as an attempt to contain a peaceful demonstration turned into devastating chaos when homemade bombs were thrown towards the soldiers. The deafening bang echoed through the narrow streets of the neighborhood, followed by screams of panic and pain. Amara and her teammates suddenly find themselves embroiled in an urban warfare scenario. They reacted instinctively, following security protocols as they tried to protect themselves and the civilians around them. But as the violence escalated, the line between order and chaos quickly blurred. Gunfire could be heard in the distance as the streets were filled with smoke from the explosions. Amara found herself in the middle of a true nightmare, her mind and body acting in sync to survive and carry out her orders. The adrenaline was palpable, his senses sharpened on high alert. At a crucial moment, when a new wave of attacks seemed imminent, Amara and her companions were ordered to react with lethal force. The guns went off, and the sound of gunfire mixed with the desperate screams of the people around. It was a horror scenario, where lives were lost in a matter of seconds. By late afternoon, when the dust and blood finally began to settle, what remained was a scene of destruction and despair. Amara looked around, her heart heavy in her chest as she watched the fallen bodies, some motionless, others writhing in pain. Every life lost was an unbearable weight on his conscience. Soldiers began gathering the bodies of those who did not survive the violent rampage. Amara helped silently, her movements mechanical as she tried to process what she had just witnessed. Each lifeless face was a brutal reminder of the consequences of violence, a grim reality she was not fully prepared to face. As she worked, Amara encountered the blank stare of an older man, whose face still carried lines of worry and pain. She hesitated for a moment, her mind filled with unanswered questions. What led you to be there in that fateful moment? What could have been done differently to prevent this tragedy? Back on base after the traumatic mission, Amara found herself surrounded by the stark contrast between her colleagues' celebration and the dark weight she carried in her heart. While the other soldiers shared laughter and stories of how they overcame the day's challenges, Amara remained silent, unable to join in the celebration. She watched from afar as toasts were made and pats on the back were distributed. Each jubilant gesture seemed distant and foreign to her, a painful reminder of the lives lost and the difficult decisions she had to make during the operation. The faces of the civilians she saw lying on the ground continued to haunt her. She remembered the expressions of fear and despair, the pleading voices that now echoed in her mind like a lingering echo. The juxtaposition between the effusive joy of his colleagues and the brutal reality he had witnessed was almost unbearable. One of her colleagues approached her, a beaming smile on her face as she raised her bottle in an impromptu toast. "Amara, you were amazing out there today. Pure courage." Amara forced a polite smile, but her mind was elsewhere. She felt like she was in a trance, disconnected from the party around her. Guilt enveloped her like a thick fog, a lingering doubt about whether her actions were truly justifiable, even amid the heat of combat. Another soldier joined the group, extolling the team's tactics and coordination during the confrontation. "We show them who's boss, don't we? Everyone was accurate and efficient." Amara agreed with a nod, but her words were short and evasive. She felt increasingly isolated in her own anguish, unable to share her colleagues' enthusiasm for a mission that, for her, left a trail of pain and loss. As the night wore on and the celebration continued, Amara decided to quietly retire. She walked through the empty field of the base, feeling the night breeze on her face as she struggled to find peace amid the whirlwind of emotions that consumed her. She sat on a lonely bench, looking up at the stars above her. Every bright spot in the sky seemed distant and unattainable, as did the clarity she sought within herself. She closed her eyes, trying to push away the vivid images that tormented her, but they persisted, insistent. Alera's voice echoed in her mind, reminding her of who she was and the commitment she had made to herself. The sun was shining brightly over the military academy campus that morning as Amara attended an intensive hands-on class on urban combat strategies. She was focused on every movement, every command, her body responding instinctively to the challenges of training. The tension in the air was palpable, a symphony of quick steps and quick commands echoing across the training ground. The class was interrupted by a high-ranking secretary who called for Amara. Amara felt a chill run down her spine. "Amara? It's your mother." Her mother's voice sounded weak and shaky on the other end of the line. "Amara, something terrible has happened. His sister, Alera, she's gone." The words hit Amara like a direct blow to the chest. She clenched the phone tightly, her heart clenched with pain and shock. Alera, his older sister, his anchor in turbulent times, was no longer there. Tears threatened to flood her eyes as she tried to process the devastating news. How? What happened? Amara managed to stammer, her voice choked by the grief that enveloped her. We still don't know for sure, Amara's mother continued, her own voice breaking through tears. But she will finally be able to rest. Amara felt her world spinning. She clung to the phone, searching for an anchor of rationality amid the whirlwind of emotions. Alara was always the person who understood her like no one else, who was there in good times and bad. The idea that she was gone was hard to accept. I need to go home, Amara finally managed to say, fighting the lump in her throat. Honey, I know you want to be here, but if you can't, you are in the middle of your training. Your sister would understand. We'll take care of everything around here. Amara's mother's voice sounded desperate, trying to offer her daughter some comfort. But Amara was not released by the commanders, and even against her will had to accept the orders, silent. She felt a mixture of anger and sadness. Anger at the injustice of losing his sister and sadness at not being able to be there to say goodbye properly. She knew she had a duty to fulfill at the gym, but the weight of loss made every move an internal battle. Later, Amara called to break the sad news. I wasn't released, Amara finally said, her voice choked. Take care there. I love you, Mom. I love you too, honey, Amara's mother muttered before hanging up. Amara stood still for a moment, the phone still in her hand. She felt a tumultuous mix of emotions as she tried to process the new reality she found herself in. Alara was gone, and she was alone, distant, surrounded by colleagues who could not understand her pain. With a heavy sigh, Amara wiped the tears that ran down her face and returned to the dormitory. The rising sun tinged the sky with shades of orange and pink as Amara and her team prepared for yet another mission. This time, the setting was completely different. Underground tunnels snaking under the city, a labyrinth of darkness and secrets. The operation was clear and straightforward, to neutralize a rebellion that threatened stability and social order. The tunnels were cold and damp. The echo of soldiers' footsteps reverberated on the stone walls. Amara felt a growing tension as they advanced, their rifle ready, senses sharpened for any sign of danger. She watched her colleagues, their faces tense and determined, reflecting the same mixture of nervousness and duty that she herself felt. Maya, one of the leaders of the team, took the lead authoritatively. Her voice echoed through the narrow corridors as she addressed firm words to the soldiers. We are here to restore order, to protect the innocent. There is no room for those who try to undermine our society. His speech was charged with conviction, every word weighing as a final verdict. As they advanced deeper into the tunnels, they encountered resistance. Groups of rebels, men and women with resolute looks, confronted them with rocks and improvised weapons. The confrontation began in a riot of shouting and metal-on-metal clash. Amara found herself acting on instinct, following orders to suppress resistance with lethal force when necessary. Shots echoed in the narrow corridors, screams of pain mixed with the harsh commands of superiors. Amara saw faces that seemed familiar with poverty and despair, now writhing in agony and fear. Each lost life weighed on his consciousness, a dark shadow amid the light that was supposed to bring order. When the dust finally settled and the tumult ceased, what remained was a scene of desolation. Fallen bodies lay silent on the cold floor of the tunnels. Amara watched the pale and motionless countenances, her mind filled with doubt and anguish. Maya approached her, her face marked by determination and the ferocity of the battle. You did what needed to be done, Amara, Maya said, her voice a mixture of compassion and pragmatism. We are here to protect our people, no matter what the cost. Amara looked at her, her eyes searching for any sign of doubt or hesitation, but found only the unshakable certainty of a leader hardened by experience. As they left the tunnels behind, Amara felt once again isolated in her own consciousness. The weight of her choices weighed like a stone on her chest, a constant reminder that being a soldier meant taking on terrible responsibilities. The night brought little relief. Amara lay awake for hours, her mind tumultuous with memories of the unknown faces she had encountered in the tunnels. Night fell over the military base, casting long, cold shadows over the concrete buildings. Amara, unable to find peace in her accommodation, decided to take a solitary walk around the perimeter. She needed space to process the events of the day and the moral issues that haunted her. Walking in silence, she found herself on the outskirts of the base, where few soldiers ventured at night. The cold evening breeze caressed her face, bringing momentary relief to the inner turmoil that consumed her. It was then that she caught sight of Maya, leaning against the wall of one of the buildings, watching the stars as if in deep contemplation. Amara hesitated for a moment before approaching. She wasn't sure she wanted to confront Maya with her own doubts, but something inside her yearned for answers, for a deeper understanding of what she had witnessed in the tunnels. Maya, Amara began, her voice heavy with uncertainty. I can't stop thinking about those people we met today in the tunnels. Who were they? Really? What did they do? Maya turned to face Amara, her dark eyes shining in the dim starlight. She seemed to consider his words carefully before answering. They were invalids, Maya said, her voice low and steady. People who were born without the genetic improvements that our society considers necessary for social harmony. Amara swallowed hard, feeling a mixture of shock and confusion. Invalids? She repeated, struggling to understand the weight of Maya's words. Then, were they rebelling because of it? Maya nodded slowly. Yes, Amara. They are seen as a threat to the order we try to maintain. The government and society at large believe that genetic improvements are essential for progress and stability. Those who do not fit this standard, and not accepting that is a big problem. Amara's mind spun as she tried to absorb the magnitude of what Maya was saying. She had never questioned the foundations of the society she grew up in, the norms that seemed so inevitable. But now, faced with the cruel reality of the invalids, she found herself questioning the price of the harmony they so determinedly protected. But that's not fair, Amara muttered, more to herself than to Maya. They are people, with lives, with families. Maya looked at Amara with a serious look. Life isn't always fair, Amara. We soldiers have a duty. Protect those who are seen as valid, even if it means standing up to those who disagree. That's what we've been taught from the beginning. Amara felt a wave of discomfort stir inside her. She wanted to believe Maya's words. She wanted to trust the purpose of the mission they had been assigned to fulfill. But the images of the bodies in the tunnels still danced in his mind, each a vivid reminder of the lives lost. I don't know if I can just accept it, Amara admitted, her voice faltering. Those people, they didn't deserve it that. Maya looked at Amara with a mixture of compassion and resignation. Sometimes the choices we make as soldiers are difficult. They require sacrifices, and we cannot always avoid the consequences. But that's what sets us apart. Our ability to move forward, to do what needs to be done. You get used to it. Amara looked at the distant horizon, not sure what to feel. The sun was slowly setting over the small country house where Amara spent much of her childhood. She was sitting at the kitchen table, her parents standing before her, serious faces and shadows dancing in their expressions. Dinner was over, but the heavy air indicated that an important conversation was coming. Amara, her mother began, her voice heavy with gravity. The time has come. We need to talk about your sister, Alara. Amara looked up to meet her parents' gaze. She could feel the lump forming in her throat as she waited for what would come next. Your sister was born with genetic limitations, his father continued, choosing his words carefully. She's a sick person, Amara. Your body struggles with various conditions from birth. The words fell heavily on Amara, her mind trying to assimilate the meaning behind them. So, her mother continued, her voice softening a little. We made hard choices to make sure you, Amara, had the best opportunities. We invested a lot to make sure your genes were the best they could be, so you could grow strong and healthy, so you could have a bright future. Amara swallowed hard, her heart clenched with a barrage of contradictory emotions. She looked at her parents, seeing the mix of hope and regret in their eyes. She knew they were trying to protect her, trying to give her the best chances in life. But now, Maya's words echoed in her mind, reminding her of people like Alara who didn't fit the mold of genetic perfection. And I should do the best with them, murmured Amara, more to herself than to her parents. Yes, Amara, her father agreed, his voice firm. "You have a chance to make a difference in this world. The military academy is an opportunity for you to stand out, to protect our society from those who threaten its stability." Amara nodded, feeling the weight of expectation on her shoulders. She knew that she had a responsibility not only to her family, but also to those who trusted her to maintain order and social harmony. But at the same time, a voice inside her whispered hard questions about what it really meant to be fair and humane. The conversation continued for some time longer, her parents offering words of encouragement and guidance as Amara tried to absorb everything that was being said. When they finally got up from the table, a sense of determination mixed with restlessness filled his chest. That night, as Amara lay on her bed, the hum of her parents' words echoed in her mind. She went to her sister's room, watching her sleep quietly, her heart heavy inside her own chest. The sun was rising on the horizon as Amara and her team prepared for the upcoming operation. They were sent to an urban area where reports of civil unrest and violent protests demanded an immediate response. Amara felt the weight of her parents' words and the expectations of the military academy pressing on her as she prepared for another day of combat. The operation began with tension in the air, an atmosphere charged with anticipation and uncertainty. As the team made their way through the narrow streets, they encountered groups of protesters, men and women with faces contorted with anger and despair. Amara felt a lump in her throat as she saw the defiant looks and the words of protest echoing through the streets. When the critical moment came, orders were issued to disperse the protesters using lethal force if necessary. Amara held her rifle, her fingers trembling slightly with the heavy responsibility of her choices. She saw the stares of the protesters, some shouting words of defiance, others simply watching with weary eyes of hope. "Prepare to shoot," Maya instructed, her voice low and stern. Amara hesitated for a moment, an inner battle roaring within her. She remembered the faces in the tunnels, the fallen bodies, the lives lost. She could not simply ignore her own moral convictions. She could not allow herself to be just a machine that obeyed orders without question. "I can't do that," Amara said in a low but firm voice. Maya turned to face her, her eyes sparkling with frustration. "What are you doing, Amara? These are enemies of society, people who pose a threat to our stability." Amara kept her rifle down, her heart pounding in her chest. "They are people, Maya. People who are protesting for their rights, for a better life. I can't just shoot them." The tension between them was palpable, the other team members watching in silence, their faces a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Maya moved closer to Amara, his face inches from hers, his voice now a harsh whisper. "You are a soldier, Amara. You swore to protect this society. We cannot afford to falter in the face of duty." Amara felt a tightness in her chest, fighting back tears that threatened to escape. She knew Maya was right on a practical level, but her conscience could not ignore what she considered right. She had seen too much, lived too long to simply accept orders blindly. At the end of the day, after the operation was completed with more severe methods, Maya summoned Amara for a private conversation. Maya's stern gaze cut through her as she spoke with sharp, cutting words. "You're a disappointment, Amara," Maya said, her voice laden with disdain. "You compromised this mission and put the team at risk because of your hesitation. Soldiers like you are a risk to all of us." Amara lowered her eyes, feeling the weight of Maya's words on her shoulders. She knew she had failed to fulfill her responsibilities as a soldier, but a part of her also felt a strange relief that she had followed her own morality. I'm sorry," Amara murmured, her voice faltering. "I just couldn't." Maya shook her head, her eyes hard. "It doesn't matter. There is no middle ground in this world." The weeks that followed were tense for Amara. She was summoned to frequent evaluations with her superiors, where she had to repeatedly justify her actions during the operation. Every time she tried to explain her hesitation, she was met with looks of disbelief and distrust. One day, Amara received an official letter summoning her back to the military academy for more intensive training and evaluation. She knew what that meant before she even opened the envelope. Upon arriving at the academy, she was met with disapproving looks and murmurs among her former classmates. During her time there, She tried to devote herself as much as possible to physical and mental training, but she knew that her stay there was doomed to an inevitable end. On a cold autumn day, Amara was called to the commandant's office. She walked in with a heavy heart, knowing what was about to happen. The commander looked at her for a moment before he started, his voice deep and serious. Amara, we have made the difficult decision to end your career at the military academy. Amara swallowed hard, her eyes meeting the commander's. I understand. Your actions during the operation demonstrated a lack of commitment to established guidelines and a risk to the safety of the team. The commander continued, his expression impassive. Amara nodded, a sense of resignation mixed with sadness. I understand. I'm sorry for any trouble I caused. The commander sighed, looking genuinely sorry. You have skills, Amara, but being a soldier requires more than skills. It requires discipline, commitment, and the ability to follow orders even in difficult conditions. Amara lowered her eyes, a wave of emotions crashing inside her. She knew that her choices had consequences, but it still hurt to know that she had failed to fulfill her responsibilities as a soldier. Leaving the commandant's office, she was met with a heavy silence in the halls of the academy. She felt like a stranger in a place she used to call home, now facing an uncertain future filled with unanswered questions. Run, Amara. Hit me if you can. Alara laughed as she ran towards the old oak tree at the bottom of the garden. Amara, a few years younger, laughed out loud as she chased Alara through the green grass. She finally caught up with her sister near the oak tree, and they both fell on the grass, gasping with laughter. You are too fast, Amara exclaimed, her breath still heavy. Alara laughed, pulling Amara into a tight hug. I love you, you know, more than anything in this world. Amara smiled, feeling safe in Alara's arms. I love you too, Alara. I would do anything for you, even if it cost me my life. Alara looked at Amara tenderly, stroking her hair. You are my brave little girl. Promise that you will always remember this, no matter what. Thank you very much to those who have supported the channel financially through the link in the comment pinned. This helps me to bring more and more stories to you. And don't forget to like and also subscribe to continue receiving the new stories.